New York City's, uh, we just saw legend being written. Let's talk about it. I I'm a little bit speechless, everybody. Sam,
Uh, I tweeted I'm speechless, so I'm I don't know. You suffer through enough bad losses and disappointment, and the last 48 hours have been fucking like honestly in Nets world it's been pretty hellish. And I similar to Bam am a sports warrior and can be a pessimist, and so I'm just I don't I'm never on the winning end of any of this stuff.
Bam, do you remember when I said we win because we have the best player? If 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 Durant isn't the best player, we don't win this game. But we win
Well,
this
look,
series because we had the best player. Is that
first,
not proving itself, Bam?
first and foremost, congratulations to every Net fan
Yep.
listening to this. All it is one playoff win, but as Sam said, if you've been riding with this team, there's been a lot of lows and not many highs, and this is one of the best wins in franchise history, not just obviously in Brooklyn Net history. Of course, it's the best one, but I mean, just forget Durant's performance, which will obviously go down in history. Forget Jeff Green, 7 of 8 for 3. Where would they have been without him in the first half? But just credit to, and obviously James Harden gutting it out, but just credit to the entire roster for not packing that sucker in at halftime
Yep.
when it felt like the arena did. I know at home I'm watching the game with my brother, my dad, and I'm packing it in. I'm texting people that aren't even Net fans, like, this is just too much.
Yeah, you really was like
Exhilarating.
ruining my you were ruining my whole feel for it. Like I thought I didn't want to say anything, but I thought the whole time we were okay. And the reason why I thought we were okay was because everybody else was off, but the person we needed to be clicking was clicking from the beginning. Kevin Durant is a different animal. He's the greatest athlete to ever play in New York. He just doesn't have the jewelry yet. If he gets the jewelry, if we win this series, I mean this with all of my heart. If this is the championship. This is the hardest team that we're going to play. People forget, like people keep trying to talk about the
Though,
Bucks.
Steve, I
Go
don't
ahead.
even want to talk down the line. I want to just say I totally agree. I mean, I said to my dad right before I left, I said, "We've never rooted for a guy like this. He's older. Maybe
Never.
he could say LT. I didn't see LT play.
Yep.
I mean, just the pure greatness. There had to have been a stretch in that game because I don't think he started off all that hot. But there had to have been a stretch at some point where he must have hit like 11 or 12 in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
it might not have been 11 or 12 in a row. Maybe it was 6 in a row. He'd miss, then he'd go 8 in a row. It wasn't perfect. He wasn't perfect from the free throw line. He wasn't perfect on defense, but he was just indomitable. He just there was nothing you can do. And
and
I've
let's
never rooted for anything like that before.
and let's also just like talk about the elephant in the room about him, because all things considered, like he has been surrounded by all worldly talent for the last like basically 6 or 7 years. Even his last year in Oklahoma City, they were like an absolute juggernaut and were the second best team in basketball. And had went from having Russ around him to then Clay and Steph and Draymond to then having, I mean, obviously Kyrie and Harden this year. And like this, I mean, this game was a game where like I'm not into the whole like where does he rank and all that stuff, because that's something you can do at the end of his career. But like I think this game did mean a lot in terms of being like, can he really carry a team like more or less alone, because let's be honest, like Harden was, I mean, if you even want to say Harden was at like 65%, I think that's pretty generous. And like he legitimately took this game and made it his. And like, let's be real, like this, like, I mean, the Bucks, look, the Bucks, to me, I thought today's game from the Bucks was similar to like the Falcons' performance against the Patriots. It's like you give like a superstar enough room, he's gonna find a way. It's kind of like what Jordan did against those Jazz teams. Like when you make mistakes and you miss free throws, if you let a killer find a way to find his prey, he's gonna do it. And that's basically what happened.
The guy played 48 minutes. He had 49 points. He had 17 rebounds and 10 assists, 3 steals and 2 blocks.
And he was great on the boards, by the way. Like he was really getting into it. He had some really tough rebounds. He had some rebounds that like earlier in the season maybe
defended Giannis.
Yep.
He.
I mean, if you just think about the way the game played out, even like the first 4 or 5 minutes of that third quarter were kind of the same thing. They were getting it to 11. You go back to 15, 16, 17.
Yep.
And they finished the quarter strong. And, I'm just losing my words. It was just an exhilarating game, the roller coaster of emotions. This is why you watch the NBA playoffs.
I think this is why you watch sports, to get here, to get to this place. Like I'm sorry. I'm a New York fan. You know, I have the Yankees. It's been a while, but that's it. That's it. And baseball is not my favorite sport. Like I enjoy every Yankee championship, but that's not my favorite sport. Even when the Giants won 2 Super Bowls, it never was because we were the dominant team that we gutted through a couple of Super Bowls.
Yeah, it's just a different sport. The one game scenario allows for upsets.
Right.
7 games, it's usually going to come down to the better team.
Exactly, and sometimes it comes down to having the better better superstar.
Yeah, and I want to shout out Blake Griffin. He had a quiet 17, but in that third quarter, he had a couple threes.
Yep.
That really just kind of kept the seesaw down. You know, never got to 20, or they kept it. They kept getting it from 15 to 12, 14 to 11. And eventually they played well. Shamet played. I thought Shamet gave us good minutes. He hit that big 3 from 11 to 8 in the corner.
I think he should have played more, to be honest. I think he has great energy, and he moves with way better confidence than. I mean, the Harris thing is something we'll get into. That's the downside of today, where he's like, I mean, that dude's beyond lost at this point. But Shamet, I legitimately think comes in and he's really active, and he's bouncy also. Like he gets up, like he was beating everybody that he got off the dribble. I actually want him to shoot more.
I don't know. I think they deployed him just enough. He's good. He played well tonight, but he's also a disaster waiting to happen. Guys, what do you guys think is wrong with Joe Harris? Bam, let me start with you.
There's nothing wrong. You know,
there's nothing wrong.
You know, I'm not. Look, he was lights out the first 7 games of the playoffs, and I understand the intensity level has risen, but he's too good a shooter. If he keeps getting the looks, eventually it'll even out. It just has to.
The concern about Harris, I think right now, actually, this is purely like, you guys can tell me if I'm looking into things too deeply or not. But I think the issue with him is not the shots that he's missing. It's that when he comes off of screen sometimes, he's not even looking at the hoop right now. Like he gets the ball, and there are moments where I'm like, shoot it. He's already thinking about the next pass. And like even that rebound that he fucked up that led to a Giannis dunk.
Oh my God.
That I thought was going to be like a changing point of the game, because it was like, that was a real fucking momentum killer.
Yeah, and stomped my foot like a toddler when he did that.
Yeah, like and that just strikes me as a guy who's just a little bit out of sorts. Like that's what happens when your mind is thinking faster than your body is. And I don't know. I don't know. Look, what I'm hoping for, and this kind of segues to what I'm sure we'll talk about, which is the next 2 games, maybe only one. But I'm hoping that the fact that now they actually have a teeny tiny bit of breathing room actually takes a little bit off some of the shooters and make them relax, which is what I'm hoping for.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I
Good
I
point.
just think that that these moments are bigger than players like Joe. No offense to Joe, you need a Joe
I'll say
Harris.
this about Joe though: they still have to guard him like he's going to make it.
Yep, that's
Right,
true.
right. He does
And
his
look,
job. He
he'll
creates
have
the
other
space.
moments,
That's
He'll have other
true
moments.
enough. True enough, but he's got to. Joe has to let that thing go.
I agree.
You could see it's not necessarily a double clutch. His form is just so perfect. It's a hesitation.
Yep.
And that hesitation isn't helping him.
But look,
Again, Sam.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, look, I thought Nash was really smart in that I think it was probably clear that they tried to run that first play for him, and
100%.
He missed, and like I think with shooters, I'm very much, I know like sports is the type of thing where like like you can change. Anything can change at any moment, whatever. But with shooting is so much of a rhythm thing that like if he makes that first one, like who knows? Which is why I do like them trying to set him up early, because I think it is important. It's like the same thing as someone who hasn't done well at the plate in a while, like bunting, just to remember what it feels like again to like make contact. Like sometimes just getting a like one look helps.
Of course.
I'm looking at Charles Barkley's face. Charles looks sour as fuck.
I like Chuck, but fuck him, because everything with him has been about what Milwaukee did or didn't do. It's never about the Nets. I'll say this about Harris though, and Sam's talking about him like coming off those screens. Like he's added to his game, like the mid range, like he finishes at the rim well, but that shit's just not going to happen for him in the playoffs. These are athletes that are bigger, longer, faster, quicker than he is. And at this stage, and the intensity level they're playing, like he's not driving by those guys in Game 5 of the NBA, the second round of the NBA playoffs. It's just not going to happen. Maybe against the Hornets in Game 38, the teams aren't playing as hard. So I agree that he really should just be thinking, if I don't have the three here, I'm going to just pass it, get back to my spot, draw my defender out of the way. He's not going to be like a playmaker for us in the paint.
But the problem is he's also not making his wide open threes. He's getting them. He's not making them.
Hits them. I mean, I've seen Kerry Kittles do this, where Kittles would disappear for a game or two and then he'd bust out. Keith Van Horn, that's the kind of player he is for this team, and you just have to hope if he continues to get these and he hits a couple, and like you said, there's much less pressure on this Game 6. For the Nets, at least, he can shoot freely. If he gets a couple going, it'll just unlock everything else for them.
Yeah, I agree. Can we just before we talk about the next game, talk about Nash? What do you guys think about his performance? I'll start so you guys can rebut what I feel, because I think I'm the only guy that's really pro Nash. I think Nash is what he is. He doesn't get in the way. I don't think under a lot of the past Nets coaches, pick one, does KD play all of those minutes. That was a player, that was a coach who understood greatness, who understood how to deploy a great player. And if he didn't do what he did tonight, we might have lost. He did the right thing with KD tonight, and it worked. I give Nash credit for that.
And look, there's things I can complain about, nitpick. They were down 16 at halftime with their backs against the wall. Like, disappointment hanging over the cloud of this franchise with such expectations, and the team stuck with it and came back and won the game. So kudos to him. And probably right. I don't think other coaches would have just roared it with a guy for. I think he's like, I've played, and I know that if I was playing, I'd want to go all 48. The only thing I thought in the first half, when they got down like 8 or 10 pretty quickly, I thought he panicked a little bit and went too offensive early, because I think the Bucks are the kind of team you can get back into the game against defensively. They are guardable. The Nets can guard them.
Yep.
Listen, aren't they the number one offense in the league? I think we're sleeping on how good the Bucks are. The Bucks just sweat. They just swept the Heat.
But it's like to me they got the regular season juju the same way those Hawks Budenholzer teams had the regular season juju. They like
The disrespect.
Well, they're much better than that
no,
team.
no. They're definitely no. Don't get me wrong.
I think they're the second best team.